Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. I know it's been a long day. My name is Eric Dawson. I'm with Nuclear New York. Basically, I think that climate policy should be technology neutral. It needs both the private sector and public sector, and it should be based on evidence. If the primary goal of any climate policy is to decarbonize by expanding zero emission energy sources, then the specific type of zero emission energy sources, whether renewables or nuclear, should not matter. To decarbonize a system as complex as an electric grid requires that we do so by any means necessary using a diverse mix of energy sources. There is no good reason for a fanatical devotion to any particular technology, nor is there to exclude any zero emission source. So nuclear should not be excluded as it is in the BPRA. Crafting energy policy holistically for the long term requires we examine all relevant problems, including electric grid reliability, carbon emissions, land use, material resource depletion, and an over-reliance on imports. New renewable buildup not only requires the mass acquisition of land and rare earth materials for sprawling industrial and solar and wind projects, but also for new transmission lines and new facilities for battery storage. Nuclear power, meanwhile, has the lowest land use and lowest material use of any zero-emission energy source, which uses a fuel that the US already has a large supply of domestically. Any energy system in the US ultimately consists of the cooperation between the public sector and the private sector. And when taking into account the huge patchwork of public entities that regulate energy in New York State, like NYPA, NYSA, NYSERDA, DEC, CAC, et cetera, as well as the strictest climate laws in the country with the 2019 CLCPA, there's no evidence that pro-renewable government intervention is lacking in New York State. Instead, the problems lie with physical limitations. And in general, when solar and wind are added to an electric grid, electricity costs to the system rise, even if ratepayer costs do not initially. All energy costs should be minimized, whether they're direct costs to ratepayers or the indirect costs eventually accumulated in tax hikes or in state debt. Evidence from recent history in New York State proves that the primary electricity problem in New York is simply an over-reliance on renewables and an under-reliance on nuclear. NYSO's own latest annual power trends report shows that, as they put it, the tale of two grids is a very short one. Upstate New York has 3 nuclear power plants and its electricity is 92% zero emission, whereas downstate New York has no nuclear plants after shutting them all down, and its electricity is now recently increased to 89% fossil fuels. Our goal should simply be decarbonization, not just building renewables. Responsible, permanent decarbonization requires the preservation and expansion of nuclear energy. Thank you.